Good morning and welcome to New Possibilities. So I'm gonna wait a couple of minutes for people to join before I get started. Um, this morning I was on YouTube and I was checking out my news feed and I saw this video that young Pharaoh did. So I decided to do this response to his video. So I'm just gonna give you all a couple of minutes before I get started. I want to thank people for tuning in. I know it's early in the morning. This should be a quick hangout because I have to get ready for work, but I just felt the need to get on here and do this video. Because this morning I was listening to young Pharaoh, and he has this video entitled, "Why Only Idiots Vote." Hold on one second. All right, so let me pick up where I left off. Shout out to Ill Wills. Good morning to you. Shout out to the once and future man. Thanks for tuning in. So I'm going to get right into it. So this morning I was going over my YouTube and I was looking at the stream of new videos that were posted. And I saw this video by young Pharaoh entitled, "Why Only Idiots Vote." So I listened to most of it, and just listening to it, it just made me think about how I really just wish some of these quote unquote woke people would go back to sleep. Because, you know, some of the things that these people say that are so-called woke are some of the most ridiculous things ever that I've ever heard before in my life. And they pass this stuff off as Black consciousness. I mean, this guy is saying only idiots vote. And really, I think the opposite is true. Only an idiot would forfeit and, you know, voluntarily surrender their right to vote and let others make important decisions for them. That's how I view it. You know, only an idiot would not vote for, you know, their, uh, school board, which makes important decisions about the quality of the education that your children receive. Only an idiot would not vote for their state representative or their state senator because that state legislature makes all kinds of decisions that affect how funds are allocated to your community, affect what kind of housing you have in your community, affect what kind of funding your police departments get. All of those important decisions are made as a result of decisions on the city council, the state legislature, your Congress, everything. Every single important decision that impacts your life is shaped by policymakers who are elected officials. So I think that the opposite is true. You know, I think that only an idiot would voluntarily allow others to make important decisions for them, to, you know, voluntarily allow others to decide who's going to be their mayor, who's going to be their city council person, who's going to be their state representative, their state senator, their U.S. senator, their congressman, and even the president of the United States. You're allowing the most reactionary elements of society to decide who is going to direct the policies in this society. When you sit back and say, well, I'm not going to vote, I'm not going to make any kind of decision at all that impacts my life. And I think that one of the other things that's so problematic about that kind of mentality is that, you know, this guy basically was promoting this victim type of mentality, this idea that Black people and other groups of people are helpless and that the Masons control everything. I mean, these people perpetuate that narrative. They love the narrative of helplessness, you know, this idea that nothing we do can make a difference. You know, these people promote apathy. You know, these not only do these people tell you not to vote, these people are also the same people telling you not to protest. You know, these people that downplay the significance of protest, and they think that everything is controlled by Masons, everything's controlled by Jews, everything is controlled by everybody except for Black people. I mean, it's like they love being helpless. because that gives them an excuse to sit on their ass and do nothing to change society. You know, the only thing that these people are interested in doing is entertaining people for views, for subs, and getting money. You know, that's all they're about. They're not about trying to change anything in society. Where is, you know, any kind of movement that these Hotep people are participating in? Where's their movement? There is no movement. I mean, if you go to that guy, Young Pharaoh's channel, all you will see is video after video where he's attacking people's beliefs, like attacking, you know, Christians, attacking Muslims, attacking Hebrews, attacking Hindus, and all that kind of stuff. That's all they do is debate, like endless debate. They engage in intellectual masturbation. They don't do anything to try to fight to improve society. And then they have the audacity to condemn those who actually put in the work to make this a better society. I mean, this guy, you know, mentioned Martin Luther King's name in the same breath as, you know, saying some other assholes. He basically suggested that Martin Luther King was an asshole in his video. And this just tells you just like how bankrupt a lot of these people are, like how ungrateful a lot of these people are. I mean, the basic rights that these people enjoy is a result of the hard work of people like Martin Luther King. You had a right to go wherever you want nowadays because of the rights, you know, because of the sacrifice of people like a Martin Luther King. You know, that brother not only, you know, gave his life, ultimately gave his life for our freedom. You know, that brother sacrificed his freedom for us. You know, he went to jail multiple times, faced police brutality. You know, the civil rights workers faced the worst. They faced the police dogs, the batons. They were lynched, you know, hosed down the street and all that kind of stuff so that we could have basic freedoms today. And you have these ingrates like this young Pharaoh referring to them as assholes, basically, and downplaying the significance of their struggle, downplaying the sacrifices that they made for us, you know, by saying that voting is stupid. I mean, not voting is stupid. You know, not getting engaged and trying to make a difference in the society is stupid. You know, now this guy said, voting for a new oppressor will not get you out of your situation of oppression. And, you know, really, that's just a display of ignorance, you know, because there are fundamental differences between candidates, there are fundamental differences between parties, and to suggest that every single person that's an elected official is an oppressor, that's just absolutely asinine and absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you look at the night and day differences between the Obama administration and the Trump administration, that illustrates the point perfectly that there are fundamental differences between these parties and these different political candidates. And, you know, this guy actually had the nerve to say that Obama was one of the worst presidents that we ever had. And his sole reason, his primary reason for that, saying that, was based on his position on same-sex marriages and stuff. I mean, it's one thing to disagree with a politician on one issue, and that's one issue that I did and do disagree with, you know, the issue of same-sex marriage and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not going to say, well, I'm not going to support this particular politician over that one single issue that in the big scheme of things is irrelevant to me. Like, it doesn't affect my life if somebody supports some same-sex marriage. I mean, how does that affect me? I'm not, I mean, I'm not a homosexual or anything like that. So that stuff has nothing to do with me. So you know, some homosexuals getting married, what does that have to do with me, my advancement, or, you know, my community or anything like that? So it's like the idea that someone would write off a politician based on that one issue is idiotic to me. And this is coming from somebody, you know, it's just funny to me that you have somebody that's making such a big deal about the LGBT thing when, you know, this person comes across like they're feminine. I mean, this guy is effeminate. You know, he has earrings in his ears. I mean, back when I was growing up, real men didn't walk around with 2 earrings in their ears. You know, the guy has feminine characteristics. The way he talks and the way he carries himself is very feminine. But yet he wants to make this LGBT issue like the the make it or break it type of issue when it comes to Obama and just dismiss Obama as the worst president ever. I mean, all you have to do is compare what Obama has done compared to what Trump is trying to do. And you will see that there are differences between these candidates and these parties. To suggest that Obama is was some kind of oppressor of black people, or some of these other progressive politicians are oppressors of black people, is ridiculous, man. I mean, what oppressor do you know that would try to pass a fair sentencing act to reduce the sentencing disparities for crack and powder cocaine? What kind of oppressor would implement a Brothers Keeper program to help out young black youth? What kind of oppressor would try to have an executive order to promote excellence in black education? I mean, what kind of oppressor would do everything in their power to correct the economy and actually result in black people having the lowest unemployment rate ever? I mean, what kind of oppressor would do that? What kind of oppressor will fight to protect your voting rights? I mean, and the list goes on and on. I mean, what kind of oppressor would sue police departments to end discriminatory practices? So, I mean, I just think that people get wrapped up in this rhetoric, this empty rhetoric without substance, and they just run with it. They use all these analogies that don't really apply. And this idea that Masons run everything is just ridiculous, man. I mean, I understand that many of the presidents were Masons. I get that. I understand that there are influential Masons and all that kind of stuff. But there are many presidents who are not Masons. There are many elected officials who are not Masons. And, the idea that the Masons control everything is just ridiculous, man. It's just like it feeds into that narrative of powerlessness. And, one thing that he talked about is like how Masons, their God is Lucifer and all that kind of stuff. That was something that one Mason said. One particular Mason said that was his opinion, that was his analysis or whatever. But there are plenty of Masons that refute that. And for those of you who haven't seen it, I did a hangout with my brother who was a Mason, a master Mason, and he explained the whole thing. When I get a chance, I'll put a link in the card so that people can check it out. But it's because of this kind of mentality that you have situations where African-American candidates lose these elections. I mean, you have had a close election in Florida. The brother Andrew Gillum lost the election, by a few votes. It was a razor-thin victory, a razor-thin loss. He lost just over a few votes. And if more people voted, the outcome in that election could have been different. You could have had a progressive in the high office in Florida. You could have had a black man as the first African-American governor in Florida. But you have people that didn't want to vote. You have people that don't believe in voting, and that undermines black political power. How can you even profess to be woke and you're undermining black political power? So, that's just something that I had to talk about, man. It's just a shame, that you have people out here with these large audiences telling black people not to vote, man. And, he basically said, as long as you engage in the system, basically you're supporting the system of oppression. As long as you're not engaged, as long as you're sitting back, letting other people make all the decisions for you, you are perpetuating your own oppression. When you're making decisions and you're setting forth a political agenda and you're holding politicians accountable to that agenda, you are not supporting a system of oppression. You are fighting against a system of oppression. You are trying to change the situation. And, I won't reiterate a lot of the points that I made before in my video about Cynthia G and this voting issue. Instead, I'll post a link in the card so that you all can check that video out. But I just think that it's absolutely ridiculous that you have people out here that espouse this nonsense, that espouse victimhood, promote helplessness. I mean, what movement has this man ever promoted? Like, where's his organized? What has he organized besides speaking engagements? What has he done to try to improve the plight of Black people besides talking here on YouTube? And I understand that there's a role for people expressing their views here on YouTube. Obviously we should, express our views, and that's a means to enlighten people if you're providing the correct information and inspire people. But what are they doing beyond that stuff? Beyond just talking? And this guy, insulted Farrakhan, talked about Farrakhan and this and that because he disagrees with Farrakhan's religion or his certain decisions to, align himself with Scientology and all that kind of stuff. It's like these people have no problem throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I mean, although you may have some differences in his idea, in terms of what he believes, in terms of religion, or his decision to embrace certain beliefs, you can't deny the good that the Nation of Islam has done. I mean, they've built their own schools. They've built their own businesses. They have their own security, their own army, their own nation. They've reformed people that were criminals, people that were gangsters, people that were drug dealers, people that were drug addicts and, prostitutes and pimps and stuff like that. They cleaned them up and stood them up and made them into productive citizens in this society. Farrakhan has continued that legacy. So for somebody to just dismiss him as if he's insignificant, as if he's some kind of agent of the system and all that kind of stuff, I just think that that's ridiculous and absurd. I think that people that promote this idea of not voting, they are serving as agents of their own oppression, because they are encouraging Black people not to try to affect change in their lives. Our votes matter. If we want to make some kind of difference in our community, we need to vote. You need to vote for who's going to be your mayor of your city. You need to vote for your city council person. And you can't say that those people are Masons, or you don't. I mean, this idea that somehow those people are, selected and not elected is ridiculous. I mean, I can understand somebody trying to present that false argument when it comes to the Electoral College, where, the president is elected by the electors. I can understand how somebody can try to make that argument. And even then I can disprove that point. But when it comes to the local level, the state level, you are directly electing your mayor, your city council person, your district attorney, your state representative, and your state senator. You are directly electing them. You are directly electing your U.S. representative and your U.S. Congress, your U.S. senator. You directly elect those people. So this idea that you don't have any kind of influence, you don't have any real choice and all that kind of stuff is just ridiculous, man. It's just contrary to the actual facts. Yeah, so it just bothers me that you have these people that promote this nonsense. I mean, this guy has over 100,000 subscribers, and you got all these people, egging them on, supporting this foolishness, basically supporting, the disenfranchisement of Black people, supporting, the non-engagement of Black people in the political process, a political process that shapes our lives. And I'm going to get to your comments in a second, but it's like all of the decisions, these policy decisions impact our lives directly. It's policy that leads to the conditions that we see in our community. Public policy has led to, the problem of poverty in our community. Public policy has led to the situation where you have failing schools in our community. It's public policy that makes it possible for police departments to engage in racial profiling, police brutality, etc. It's a public policy that allows these police to get away with killing Black people. So if you want to change those policies, you need to change the politicians who are in office and make sure that they are adherent to your agenda. It's just that simple. So I don't understand why these people just brush aside electoral politics. And, I did that video in response to Cynthia G, where, she did this video, Why Vote? I did my response. And you had a lot of people come to that video and basically say, well, you're wrong and Cynthia G's right. But none of those people that said that offered any kind of proof to back up that claim that she's right. None of these people offered any kind of rebuttal to anything that I said in my video. Instead, they just threw in these conclusory type of statements saying, well, I disagree with what you're saying. If I'm wrong, prove me wrong. That's what I challenge these people to do. And, it's just ridiculous. And then this guy, like, this so-called woke person talked about how he sides with the racists in terms of their opposition to Obama. I mean, this is what passes as Black consciousness here on YouTube, man. Somebody that disrespects, a freedom fighter like Martin Luther King, disrespects Louis Farrakhan, and then disrespects the president, President Obama, by talking about how he sides with white racists, white supremacists against Obama. I mean, that is absurd. That is absolutely ridiculous. And I've cited a few examples of what Obama did that benefited Black people. And it's just a shame that you have these ingrates like this young Pharaoh who think they're so knowledgeable when they're really not. So anyway, I'm gonna go to your comments in the chat room before I sign out. I may do another video following up, just further substantiating the points that I'm making in this video. But I just felt the need to get on here because it's so disappointing that you have people actually thinking it's idiotic to vote when the reality is it's stupid not to vote. Our ancestors didn't fight and die for the right to vote for nothing. I mean, they understood the importance of voting, but yet you had these ingrates that don't appreciate the sacrifices of our elders and our ancestors, and they discount the vote. And they basically saying, he's basically saying that those brothers and sisters that marched on that bridge in Selma, he's basically saying they're stupid, for fighting for the right to vote. All these people that died for the right to vote are stupid. People that were lynched, people that were beaten, people that went to jail, all of those people were stupid because they wanted to vote, because they wanted to have some kind of impact on public policy. I mean, this guy offered zero proof that these mysterious Masons control every election. Every single election that goes on in America, the Masons control it. I mean, that's just so insane, man. It's so ridiculous. And it's like, again, these people love being victims. They love being helpless, because then when you're helpless and you're a victim, you don't have any responsibility. You can point your finger at something else instead of taking matters into your own hands. But anyway, let me go through your comments. Thanks for tuning in. Let's see. Shout out to BB. Good morning to you. BB said voting locally is necessary. Yeah, because it's like, it's crazy, man. Like, that you have these people that are on here that's like promoting like apathy. That's basically what they're promoting. I'm just thinking about all these close elections, man. Andrew Gillum losing in Florida, and it looks like Stacey Abrams may lose. Like, as far as I know, it hasn't been decided, but so far she's behind. They're still counting some other votes, and I'm sure she's probably going to bring a lawsuit. She may bring a lawsuit against the Secretary of State. There's already lawsuits against the Secretary of State for suppressing Black voters. And then, like, this guy basically tried to redefine, in his video, he was trying to redefine the word freedom to suggest that it means something about like Masons ruling over other people. which is ridiculous. I mean, the word has its roots, like there are roots to these words. And we all know the definition of freedom. I don't even need to read the definition. You all know the definition. But it's like, the people like this young Pharaoh, they remind me of that character from that show In Living Color, where you got this prisoner that's talking all, using all these fancy words, and he's really talking nothing but gibberish. I mean, that's how these people come off to me that are supposed to be so woke and so conscious. We don't have to even worry about the white man trying to suppress our vote when we got people like young Pharaoh, people like Cynthia G, people like all these other personalities on here basically telling you and me not to vote. And these same people later on, they want to whine and cry about what these politicians are doing, that's detrimental to the Black community. Coco Ness Fox said, how asinine is it to say I'm not going to vote, but you're still bound by these laws, even if you don't vote? Exactly. Like, even if you decide, well, hey, I'm not going to vote, I'm going to abstain from the system, I'm going to not engage in the system and this and that, you're still impacted by the laws that are implemented in this society. I mean, this guy had this juvenile analogy that he used. He talked about like how if you engage in the system, like by voting, you are supporting the system, basically. And then he compared that to like watching some YouTube video. He said all you have to do is not engage from that, with that video if you don't want to support it. But even if you go there and you like commenting one way or the other, you're supporting the video by watching it and adding to the viewership and this and that. But you can't compare that situation to voting. If I decide not to watch a particular YouTube channel, it's not going, that's fine for me. That means that I'm not looking at that person. And that person really doesn't affect my life in any kind of way. Like me withdrawing from watching that video, that doesn't really affect my life in the big scheme of things. But you can't compare that to voting. Like if I withdraw from voting and supposedly withdraw from the system, I still live within this society. I'm still affected by what kind of decisions are made in terms of who's going to be the chief of police, what kind of policies the local police department has for engaging with citizens. I'm still affected by that. I'm still affected by how the schools are funded in this particular city. If you have children going to school, you are impacted by that. You're impacted by like what kind of funding goes to what different types of projects in your community. You're affected by what kind of civil rights laws are enacted, what kind of laws are revoked and all that kind of stuff. You're directly affected. You're affected by like decisions that are made on the federal level in terms of the federal courts, the Supreme Court, and even the lower federal courts when they decide what kind of civil liberties you have. When they make decisions about your freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures, your freedom of speech and all that kind of stuff. Your life is impacted by the decisions that these elected officials make and by the decisions that the judges make that are appointed by elected officials. And in many cases, you directly elect the judges that sit in judgment in these courts. So those elected officials have an impact on your life, a very real impact. Every single aspect of your life is affected by these elected officials, whether you vote or not. So even if you decide not to vote, you're still affected by these laws. You're still affected by various policies. So, that's a great point that you make right there. I mean, these people act like they live in some separate country or something like that. As long as you live within the boundaries of the United States, you are affected by all the laws and policies within this country. So understanding that you're impacted, why not have some kind of influence over what kind of laws are enacted in your particular state or even in this overall country? BB said YouTube access has enabled dysfunction, by giving like these pseudo scholars an audience. I mean, you have these people, nobody checks your credentials here on YouTube. Like anybody can get on here and espouse certain views, whether they're substantiated or not. And in some ways, it's good to have dialogue. It's great to have dialogue, to have different opinions and stuff like that. But YouTube has enabled, people that have no knowledge to actually get on here and spew actual nonsense. They have given, pseudo scholars an audience. They made it possible for anybody to get on here and share their views, even if their views are nonsense, even if their views are ridiculous, even if their views aren't backed up by any kind of actual facts. Anybody can get on here. It's not like somebody teaching at a college or university where you have to have certain degrees, you have to have certain credentials. It's not like even in the activist community where you have to have some kind of history before somebody like puts you in a position of leadership. You have to have some kind of proven track record or something, some kind of demonstrated commitment to the people, and some kind of track record of success. But here on YouTube, all you have to do is be able to articulate yourself and be persuasive in order to build an audience. And I think that that's one of the bad, and in some ways it's bad, in some ways it's good, because it gives, many people a voice here on YouTube, but at the same time, it allows for the proliferation of false information. And, that's what you have when you have somebody telling you that you don't have a choice. Prove that you don't have a choice. I mean, you look at all these local elections, you have a choice between all these different candidates and all these different parties. And really, you're not even confined to the two major parties. You have third party candidates that run for office all the time. So let me continue on through your comments before I sign off. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, we should vote, more African Americans into office. And, we have the opportunity to do so. But you got people like this young Pharaoh who writes off black politicians, who assumes that all black politicians are puppets and all that kind of stuff. And some of them are. But it's up to us to hold these politicians accountable. As I said in my prior video, we can't just vote and chill. We got to vote and hold these elected officials accountable. And not only just vote, we need to put forth candidates that we support, put our money behind them, sacrifice our time for them by campaigning for them and canvassing for them and all that kind of stuff. BB said, as a law professor, these fools lack critical thinking skills. Yeah, some of them do, man, unfortunately. Yeah, so Ill Will said it's been old for years, brothers debating each other in New York City, stimulate each other with rhetoric and stupid banter. They act like they're the pillars of the community. Shaking my head. Yeah, I mean, because it's like, I just wonder, like, what have these people done, man? What are they actually doing besides talking? I mean, I understand the importance of sharing views and inspiring people, but what are they doing beyond that? I was watching this hangout with Sa Netter and Cynthia G, and she was saying like that all these people do is talk or whatever, and that's valid. But the same can be said of her. Like, what does she actually do besides YouTube videos? Like, what do any of these people actually do besides YouTube videos? What organizations do these people belong to? What actual movement are they a part of to make any kind of change in this society? What are they doing to fight police brutality, for instance, or other forms of racial discrimination? What are they doing besides talking? I'm doing a little something. I'm a civil rights attorney. I deal with race discrimination matters all the time. So just by my profession, I'm doing something. Obviously there's more that could be done. Um, each of us need to be more engaged, and we need to challenge ourselves to be more involved in our communities. Like, if we really want to see a difference, We need to be organized. We need to join organizations, as Kwame Ture encouraged us years ago. We need to get involved, get involved in movements and actually try to do something to make a difference in our local community. We have to go beyond just talking. And too often, all we do is talk. All we do is talk. And it's just, man, it's just crazy, man. It's like a bizarro world. Like things are backwards, where you have people saying that somebody is an idiot for doing something that's intelligent. Voting is intelligent. It's the best way that you can actually have a voice in this society. The voice that you use by voting is much louder than a voice on YouTube. It has more impact than a voice on YouTube, because you're actually able to shape what kind of policies you want implemented in your community. Yeah, I think Concrete Junk, I think you may be referring to that shooting that took place. I'm going to have to watch the news and see what's going on. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. GA 5524. Like, I wonder, like, what are these people's solutions? Like, they don't offer any solutions. All they do is shoot down ideas that present alternatives, like ideas that actually are about trying to change society. They just shoot down these ideas like voting and stuff like that. It's like, what do they offer? They're not offering anything really. They don't even protest. They don't even offer that. None of these people are revolutionaries. None of them are advocating, revolution or anything like that. Because if they were, they would be shut down immediately here on YouTube. So they're not even advocating that. These people don't advocate anything this towards any kind of real solution. And that makes me just question them, man. It makes me question their intentions. Yeah, it's just like I agree with that, GA, about, those other YouTubers you mentioned and personalities. Yeah, so I don't want to keep y'all too long. I may come back and do a more thorough video on this issue of Freemasonry and, democracy and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, because I think that there's more that could be said about this subject. There's much more that can be said about this subject. I just think that, like, these ridiculous conspiracy theories do not help the Black community. They don't empower the Black community. All they do is promote helplessness and powerlessness. That's all that conspiracy mumbo jumbo does at the end of the day. These people's telling you that you don't have a choice, you don't have any power, you're an idiot if you try to change your situation. They sound like those people that are, they want to keep you on a plantation. But anyway, let's so Water Sniper is saying that he's hearing that Andrew Gillum lost because Black women voted for a racist white guy. I doubt that. I really doubt that that's the case. But I need to find out more information. If you have any sources for that particular assertion, I would like to check those out. So if you can leave the source either here in the chat room or in the comment section once this video uploads, I would appreciate it, so that way I could go and look up that particular article or that particular video. But I really think that that's nonsense. You know, I don't think that it's black women's fault that Andrew Gillum lost the election. You know, many times black women turn out to vote more than black men. You know, I think that in the last election in 2016, it was black women that made a difference in a lot of those races, elections and all that kind of different elections and stuff. So I question that. You know, I have, I think that that's suspect, but I'll look at whatever source you have for that particular assertion. Shout out to Vic Damone. What's good with you? So Water Sniper said he's gonna give a link after the video uploads. Yeah, so I look forward to checking that out to find out what this person is saying. You know, find out what their sources are. But I doubt that that's the case. But anyway, man, I want to thank y'all for tuning in, and don't forget that your vote matters. If you're not registered to vote, you should register today. So with that, I'm going to say peace and blessings to each and every one of you. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.